Hello, everybody, and welcome to our week talking about advocacy and clinical mental health counseling. Though we briefly touched on advocacy in our first week's PowerPoint, we'll be exploring the multiple components of this act in a little more depth today. So like I said in our last slide, advocacy is an action. It requires the use of our voices and bodies to take up space and implore that changes take place. Within our profession, we will find ourselves advocating for and with clients, as well as for our profession in general. Both of these definitions talk a little bit about how that shows up in terms of arguing for change on the behalf of another person or group, as well as looking at that through a lens of social activism, so creating shifts within social systems, and then additionally within the counseling profession. And this really facilitates access to us so that consumers and the general public understands what we do as counselors. And advocacy is such a critical component of our profession. It's so critical, in fact, that it's built into our CACREP 2016 standards within the areas of professional orientation and ethical practices. There are specifics in this rationale that are key to address. One being the need for advocacy efforts to address institutional barriers that bar access to services, equity, and success of our clients. This often includes access to resources like medical and mental health care, housing and economic security, safety, and personhood. Many of our diverse and intersectional clients are denied this access due to systems of privilege and oppression within our society. And these systems are often upheld by public policy and legislation. Thus, as counselors, we might find it within our roles to engage directly with policymakers as we work to shift these systems toward increased accessibility and comprehensive protections for all of our clients. Also, in general, people with mental health diagnoses are often stigmatized and denied access and protection. Thus, we need to advocate for destigmatization of clients as well as mental health diagnoses at large, thus increasing awareness of our professional services and deconstructing shame and stigma that prevents people from accessing the care that we provide. This chart delineates the domains of advocacy and is a useful tool in exploring the ways in which we can act with or on behalf of individuals and systems. If you take some time to pause this PowerPoint and explore each cell, you'll see that advocacy exists on the micro and macro level, and action on all levels is necessary for creating systemic change to allow for individual growth and empowerment. So if you look a bit at this chart, maybe you can envision different examples that might be relevant to each cell, whether that's within your client population, your community, or even in the public arena. And there are many types of counselor advocacy, and I've outlined a few here, and I'm going to break them down a little bit. So when referring to transformational advocacy, we're talking about the ways we can make changes within our profession to meet and surpass the ever-increasing bar of excellence. This area requires constant revision of standards. So for example, the CACREP standards, they shift and change to ensure students are meeting all standards of the profession by enrolling in a monitored and comprehensively built counseling program. These standards, along with counseling professional organizational ethical codes, will often shift and change as the socio-political climate also evolves. And this really works to ensure the provision of holistic and ethically sound care for all clients, regardless of the ways that maybe laws are shifting or practices might be shifting. So our foundation here is really to provide ethical and equitable care. You can also engage in advocacy through social networking. This can be in person or virtually. Your presence and self-presentation as a counselor can lead to the opportunity to educate others about what counseling actually is and how counseling can benefit clients and society. For example, each time I explain to friends, family, or colleagues how counseling differs from other mental health professions, I'm promoting public awareness of our profession. I'm also helping them understand how we fit into the larger picture of healthcare provision. Some advocates really love working on a more macro level platform. For example, lobbying for policy change at a state and federal level. There are many opportunities to get involved here, whether it be writing letters, organizing a campaign, or meeting with legislators. This is an important level of change because it allows for the integration of counseling and the destigmatizing of mental health care into the larger socio-political context, and we can see right now that that is incredibly needed. Additionally, within program advocacy, advocates address the need for streamlined and standardized training of counselors, ensuring the quality of education counselors in training receive. This has been connected to the effort to move all counseling programs toward a CACREP accreditation standard. And then finally, in professional advocacy, our work is to increase awareness of and access to the profession. This means letting other professionals know how we can support their work, holding conferences for the dissemination of groundbreaking research, and promoting counselors as competent and effective care providers. This might often blend with the political advocacy when considering certain lobbying efforts, like getting counselors reimbursed by Medicare, and we'll talk a little bit about that more later. There are some hot button advocacy issues right now within our profession. So thinking about advocacy, within social justice advocacy, counselors believe that all clients deserve equitable treatment and fair access to resources. As we discussed earlier, this requires consideration of present and historical systems of privilege and oppression that bar this access, as well as an analysis of how systemic distribution of power necessitates counselors taking action to remove or ameliorate those barriers. I want to provide some examples of advocacy efforts that are currently taking place in our profession. The first advocacy areas relate to advocacy efforts for and within the profession. With regard to licensure portability, as we discussed in our credentialing week, we need portability across state lines for many reasons. Not only does it allow counselors to move throughout their professional careers and live in state to state, but it streamlines, reinforces, and aligns our professional standards, bringing us closer to the requirements of our profession as described in the book chapter for this week. There are many ways that you can get involved in this licensure portability movement. Through the AMCA website, you can find links to different groups that are advocating for licensure portability. Additionally, as I just mentioned in the last slide, the move from Medicare reimbursement has been a major area of advocacy focus, as counselors have all the necessary training to receive reimbursement for services offered to clients receiving Medicare. I have a story that might show a bit about why this is important right now. So I worked at a hospital that ended up, they had many different mental health care professionals working there. They had psychiatrists, they had psychologists, they had social workers, and they had counselors. And we all worked together on a treatment team, and we fulfilled different roles. After I left that hospital, they ended up firing all of the counselors due to being unable to have their services reimbursed because the large percentage of clients were coming in with Medicare. So obviously, as we grow as a profession, we will need to continue to work to ensure that we have access to the same reimbursement as other mental health professions. This expands client access to our specialized services and then also our access to our livelihood. Another hot area of advocacy relates to social justice and social advocacy. And this area is the national approach right now to deportation and detainment of immigrants in the United States. I have provided a link here that takes you to the ACA President's letter to Donald Trump, stating ACA's position on the separation of families. This is something that I think is very important that counselors do have an active voice in stating the mental health impact that family separation can have on people, the impact of trauma, and the sustained mental health repercussions of state violence and actions that are taken like this. So please take a moment to visit this website and explore a bit. And also, I forgot to mention the website under the Medicare reimbursement is talking a bit about why the American Counseling Association is seeking support for being reimbursed by Medicare. Additionally, another area where there is a bunch of advocacy happening right now is around that of conversion therapy. And for those of you who are not familiar, conversion therapy is a measure that is taken to try and change somebody's sexuality or gender identity. And typically it is employed by religious counselors that believe that it is a sin to be LGBTQ, and there are some pretty atrocious practices that are associated with conversion therapy. Now, there are many states that are pushing for conversion therapy bans, and these are bans that will essentially ban the practice of conversion therapy with LGBTQ plus minors. This is an incredibly important issue as conversion therapy is still offered in many states. Only 14 states plus the District of Columbia have bans in place, meaning that there are no repercussions for the practice of this treatment. And this is treatment that's deemed very harmful by all major medical and mental health associations. So if there's not a ban, that means that conversion therapy can be freely practiced. We have professional standards that state that it is completely unethical to engage in conversion therapy. However, that doesn't stop other mental health professionals from passing this off as a legitimate form of treatment. And it's even hard for me to say legitimate form of treatment because from the abundance of research looking at the impact of conversion therapy, it is a very targeted act of violence. So in this link, you will find a statement from ACA that is in support of these conversion therapy bans, and you will also see some interprofessional advocacy happening here as ACA references the APA study that condemns conversion therapy practices as dangerous, harmful, and unethical. So I will post these links in the description section of this YouTube channel so that you can visit all of these. And please take some time to read and explore how counselors are really working to try and shift and shape some of the socio-political context. If you'd like to follow the link below, this is going to take you to a wonderful website that is an example of an awareness advocacy campaign to bring awareness to the issue of intimate partner violence. This is a phenomenal website that utilizes study results and words of survivors of intimate partner violence to share empowering messages that people can overcome their abuse and create positive nonviolent lives, to describe strategies that have worked for other survivors to help them overcome their abuse and the stigma related to it, and to promote a new view of battering survivors that shows them as triumphant, courageous, and resourceful. I've taken this description directly from the website in the section about this advocacy campaign. So if you'd like to look a bit on this website, you will find things like the infographics that I have copied and pasted here. These infographics are made from survivor voices and words. So in a study that the creators of this website completed, they collected stories and words of resilience from survivors. And so I've included some for you to look at. There are many on the website. Additionally, there are survivor stories. There's a blog, resources for survivors and people who are currently in relationships where they experience intimate partner violence, and then even access to different self-care and help campaigns and days that are available within the community. So please take some time to explore this site and to explore if this type of advocacy might be something that's of interest to you. As you are moving forward and considering how you would like to engage in advocacy, I want to offer a few suggestions. First, ensure that your advocacy work centers on improving conditions for someone else's benefit. Whether this be for our clients or a marginalized group or community, or even for those within our profession. Advocacy work is really aimed toward creating a positive shift in someone else's life. Additionally, a lot of us postpone advocating because we fear that we do not know enough. I might argue that if we wait until we become experts to advocate, we have waited too long. We do not have to know all of the facts. All you need is to have a passion within you that can inspire you to engage in work that can ignite the embers of change. You can explore potential advocacy opportunities by perusing the professional organizations divisions on the ACA website. You might have an interest in lobbying for conversion therapy bans, as I mentioned earlier. You could do this by joining with the Society for Sexual, Affectional, Intersex, and Gender Expansive Identities, or SAGE, to lobby in this political arena. Or you might be inspired by the Division of Counselors for Social Justice, in which you can join their lobbying efforts. There are so many divisions that are directly involved in advocacy within and outside of the profession, and if you have ideas, you might even be able to spearhead new initiatives. And finally, I would encourage you to get to know some of the people who are at the forefront of bringing these advocacy issues to life. You can build relationships with other counselors and leaders within our profession, and these relationships can be incredibly transformational for you and for our clients. And so, as you explore the ways in which advocacy will manifest in your counseling career, begin to formulate a vision. You'll have a bit of a chance to do this on our discussion board for this week. But this vision can be as big or as small as you want, but allow yourself to put your values into the ways in which you choose to advocate. If your vision does not inspire you, maybe there's another one within you that has more energy around it, leading to sustained advocacy efforts and enthusiasm. This will really facilitate the inspiration of others. They'll feel the passion within you. They'll feel that passion that you hold for this avenue of advocacy work, and maybe they'll join in on the efforts, or maybe they'll feel supported by your efforts. And finally, remember that when you're engaging in advocacy, especially in the first part of your advocate career, that to get good at anything, you need to be bad at it first and then get incrementally better. So if you have a passion for this work, if you have the energy and the focus to persist through, you're going to be able to find what it feels like to be a successful advocate. And I imagine that you're also going to inspire others along the way. So if you would like to process this anymore, if you have questions about avenues that feel like appropriate advocacy avenues, please let me know. We can consult about this. But I look forward to hearing a bit about how you might see your advocacy identity manifest within the coming years as we talk on our discussion board. Thank you all and have a wonderful week.